Alrighty everyone, welcome back. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, because I didn't see you over the break. I had a mild case of food poisoning, and so I couldn't even enjoy Judinta Had because it came out on Christmas Eve, so that was something. But today I've got 6 builds for you now that the dust is kind of settled on Title Update 4. I'm calling them the final builds because at most I feel like we're gonna get some tweaks. If they do release some more AT monsters and stuff, maybe we will make some changes. But overall, I think these are pretty well optimized builds that will carry you through grinding Gogmazios and anything else you might want to do over the coming months or even years. I don't know how long the expansion is going to take to come out. So yeah, but before that, I wanted to talk about some caveats. I was technically wrong in the last video saying that Lance was probably going to go attack focus. Technically wrong by 0.05%, so don't cut yourself on such a thin margin. But it looks like element focus is actually optimal. If you have attack focus lances though, don't worry, they're still viable. They're basically just as good. You can still use your status effect lances with attack focus if you are so inclined, but keep in mind that status seems to be on its way out. Capcom doesn't seem to like the idea of status effects too much. And also, Element seems to be gaining a lot of purchase with recent changes and stuff. A lot of weapons that historically have been using raw, quote-unquote, status weapons have been swapping over to Element. Things like Greatsword are just swapping over to Element, or have been for quite a while. Switch Axe even is going for Element File in some matchups, which is crazy to think about because like there was nothing more raw than Switch Axe. So all of those things just leads me to believe that Element is the way to go, most likely, even for the expansion. So if you do have the chance to re-roll your Artian weapons and make elements, then that's the play. So the other thing about the weapon that I wanted to clear up before this is we're building on the assumption that you have the Gogma Artian weapons with Gormagalla's Tyranny as the set bonus and Lord Soul as the group bonus. I'm not making budget versions because frankly, I don't think it's that deep. Yeah, you can swap one piece yourself, try to make ends meet, but these builds have been optimized to that specific parameter, which is unfortunate because that's how Capcom wants you to grind. They want this grind to last as long as possible until we get to the expansion. That's basically the whole gist of it. Thankfully, they're not that difficult to get. Quite honestly, it took me about a week and a half maybe to get all of my lances with that specific set and group bonus combination. So for the reinforcements, 4 attack, 1 sharpness is still optimal for element focus, but you know me, I really like sharpness, and having 2 EX sharpness has really alleviated the sharpness problems that I personally had with Lance, so I'm sticking with 3 attack, 2 sharpness. So for the attack focus, you're going to have to sacrifice one of those attack bonuses for an affinity EX bonus. All right. Next, we want to talk about RNG talismans. The Gamma weapon is probably going to be enough grinding for a lot of people, and I don't want to have you struggle with RNG talismans as well to make ends meet. We're going to be using craftable talismans to avoid any problems like that. That being said, if you already have good talismans or you are interested in RNG talismans, what you're looking for is a 3-level weapon deco, Offensive Guard 3, Razor Sharp 3, or Master's Touch 1, and 1 point in one of the important armor decos, Wax, Agitator, Burst. And then after that, the rest is just kind of like mix and matching with your weapon deco and your armor deco. So with all the caveats out of the way, I wanted to look at the builds now. And I did fight some AT monsters to kind of put the builds through the paces, and they all came out very, very well. The worst was like a 7-minute and change. So let's start with the first build, probably my favorite and probably the strongest. This is Gorcher. So Gorcher is 2-piece Guardian Rathalos, 2-piece Judinta Had, so we do get the Revolt, the Binding Counter, and 2-piece Gore with the weapon. Obviously we get Guts because of the weapon as well. And we're actually using Flare 2 as a talisman because that ended up being the optimal for my specific uptimes. I'll put the uptimes on screen. They're really not that important because they're personalized to your own hunts, right? So if you notice that your uptime for, say, Agitator is way below 70%, then you're gonna have to tweak that personally yourself. But yeah, Gorcher came up with the highest DPS. I did calculate. In practice, it's even higher because of Judinta Had's Revolt. I didn't calculate with Jin because I figured not a lot of monsters have power clashes, so you're not gonna be getting a lot of benefit from that. It's just extra damage at the end of the day. And you get Scorcher. Scorcher is very nice as well because it scales inversely to player skills. So the better yours, Scorcher is gonna be doing less, but overall it's still gonna be free damage. Obviously, it has a very good rocking chance, and it deals true damage as well, by the way, with a little bit of extra fire, so don't get confused by that. It still works very well on like water matchups. Next up, we have what I call Bursto. So Burst is 2-piece Ebony, obviously, and 2-piece Gore, and the same Jindahad 2-piece to get Binding Counter. This one's also very nice. Not my favorite. In practice, it is a little bit weird depending on the matchup to get the burst uptime and keep getting the bonus. But in some matchups where we have a very aggressive monster, say like Gore Magala, this would pop. And it still has the 2 1-slots for shockproof plus something else. But yeah, this is how the math ended up. It's better to max out Wax than to max out Burst because of the affinity. Next up is what I call Fat. This is the 3rd build, and it's using Zhu Wu's Protein Fiend, which is pretty funny. It ended up being a lot more awkward than I expected. This is practically stolen from the Sword and Shield department. So if you could do me a favor and go give Judao and all those folk at Sword and Shield a big hug from me, because they are doing some funny business in there, and that's something that I absolutely love. Sometimes you find a gem like this, where this build actually outperforms a lot of the other builds in this list. Sure, it's conditional, and for Sword and Shield, it's going to work out far better because you have one of, if not the best drawing speed weapon in the game, so you can just put your sword away and eat. It doesn't really work too well with Lance, but I think in a multiplayer setting it's going to be slightly better. So I don't want to talk too much about the build because I want you to go watch that other video, so go ahead and do so. And yeah, the next one is Old Reliable. This is Fulgore. It's back with a vengeance, and 2-piece Fulgore, almost the 2-piece Jindahad. The unfortunate thing is that there is a version with 2-piece Jindahad, but it has no slots, and I do feel like if you're playing in multiplayer, shockproof is a must. So, you know, give or take, this is the version that I ended up with, and it has a 1 slot for Flare as well, which can also be latent power. Just comfy. I mean, affinity uptime for max might, it means you just deal way more damage, right? So it's one of those skills that blurs the line between what people traditionally call comfort and just straight up damage. So Fulgore is fantastic. I did see some weapons trying out Fulgore themselves, but honestly, Lance has the monopoly on Fulgore, and I'm glad we were able to reclaim it this patch because I kind of missed it. I really did. And almost finishing up, we have Nanomachines. This is the 2-piece Numinous. Again, 2-piece Jindahad and 2-piece Gore. This was basically the same template that was using for the other version of 2-piece Fulgore, except you just swapped out the Dahad Van Braces for the Dahad chests, and then just use 2-piece Fulgore in the other 2 slots. It works out. And you'll notice that this one does not have shockproof, and it was really the only way you are able to craft this, trying to fit in all of the skills. Unfortunately, trying to mash Jindahad with Numinous ends up giving you like 10 agitator. I'm being hyperbolic, but the problem with this build is that it had too much agitator, and so you had absolutely nothing helping you out with Wex. So you can max out both of them. Usually you have some pieces giving you Wex, some pieces giving you Agitator, and then you can make ends meet. In this case, almost every single piece was trying to give you Agitator. So we did max out everything. Thankfully, everything works except shockproof. So keep that in mind if you're playing multiplayer. I wouldn't really recommend this. And frankly, this one just got beaten by the next entry. So this is the final form, probably, of the wall. This is the tankiest build, and you can tell it's tanky if you go fight AT Raidao without your Palico, and you don't have to heal that much. And indeed, this is probably my favorite build. It deals a lot of damage, you'd be surprised. So obviously, it's 2-piece Arc Vulcan, the 2-piece Gore. We couldn't get the 2-piece Jindahad bonus for the binding counter, but that really doesn't matter, and it only works because we have the Challenger 3 charm, so you do have to go fight Jindahad a couple of times for it. And yeah, it's fantastic. It deals a lot of damage. It has enough 1 slots as well to cover you for any other matchup, say like 18 New Udra where you need adaptability, or 80 Uthduna where you need aquatic mobility. And the comfort from haste and recovery cannot be understated. Like, for a weapon that has such a terrible draw time that doesn't get affected by Quick Sheath, being able to passively heal is one of the biggest DPS increases that you can have. So one of my favorites. And that's about it. I have some other concepts that I wasn't really able to get them in time for this video, but it's something I'll keep working on. Obviously, we have months and months and months of just theory crafting up ahead, so we have plenty of time to look at different options. But yeah, I am still looking to make possibly a Resentment build with Bad Blood 1 or even Bad Blood 2. But overall, yeah, go watch that Sword and Shield video. And from me, again, Happy New Year and all of that good stuff. More content to come, so stay tuned. And as always, have a good one and take care.